Firefly has been fighting for this day for a long time, and we're finally here, launch day. This is an exciting day for Firefly Aerospace as we're about to conduct our very first test launch. But getting here has not been easy. If you followed our story for a while, you know that we've had to overcome a lot of obstacles and major setbacks to get here. Max Polyakov, a few friends, family, and I started Firefly about 4 years ago. Since then, it's been a non-stop technical and financial adrenaline rush. Rockets are the most challenging of machines to develop, and it takes a lot of money. But our passion launch vehicle ever built. We've engineered almost every part from scratch using the best modern technology. It is the world's largest all-carbon fiber structure rocket and is propelled by Firefly's innovative, patented rocket engine technology. Over the past several years, we've built and ground tested a lot of hardware, leading up to the fully flight-qualified vehicle that now awaits first flight on the launch pad. Many people have asked me what to expect today. What's the probability of success? To be clear, the rocket on the pad is built to deliver its payload to orbit, 300 kilometers above the Earth. And my expectation is that it will do exactly that. Everything we've done from ground testing to computer models tells us that this vehicle is capable of reaching orbit. Having said that, it's a test flight. There are aspects of liftoff and flight that we can't fully test on the ground. Our computer models need flight test data to be more accurate. So success today means getting as much data as possible to improve our computer models and other design assumptions. I think the most gratifying part of today is recognizing how far this team has come. Firefly has an incredibly talented and hardworking team that has really gelled and come together over the past few years. We have a team capable of solving very difficult problems, persevering through setbacks, and following through to completion. In short, the Firefly team gets things done. We'd especially like to thank our partners at Space Launch Delta 30 and everyone at Vandenberg Space Force Base who supports launches from the Western Range. I feel incredibly fortunate today as we head to the launch control room, attempt our first space flight mission, and take a major step forward as a company. Godspeed, Firefly.
Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Welcome to a really, really exciting launch, a launch that I've been waiting for a very, very long time. I am surprisingly somehow your official host for tonight's attempt for Firefly with their Alpha rocket. This is actually a really, really big deal for me. I've been talking with Firefly for basically the entire year as to how can we stream your rocket together. And the coolest thing to me is that they came back to me, they reached out to me and we've been kind of communicating, trying to figure this out. But my favorite thing is they said, Tim, we just want you to do what you normally do. And we want you to just share a rocket with the world. And their level of transparency has been incredible. So I'm really, really excited to let you know that we're running the show here and we get to kind of just do what we normally do, which is a huge testament to Firefly. So thank you, Firefly, for trusting us with this launch, trusting us with this stream, which we know may be having some issues as we speak, actually. That's probably part of the problem of trying to do things between different parts of the world at all at the same time. But the cool thing is right now, as we speak, we do have a rocket on the pad getting ready to launch. So let's do what we always do with every time we get ready for a stream, because anytime you have any question about rockets and rocket launching, we have a solution on our website at everydayastronaut.com. You can click on upcoming launches and you can click on our pre-launch previews. And today, if you check out our pre-launch preview for this particular launch, you will see the Firefly FLT A001/Dream This is the alpha launch. So let's go ahead and run you through this today. So starting as far as their launch window, as you see in our countdown clock in the top right-hand portion of your screen, we are sitting at T minus 50 minutes. That's today on September 2nd here in the United States. This will be September 3rd for those of you east of us. The launch window begins at 1 UTC and goes through 5 UTC. So they do have a 4-hour launch window. That is 6 p.m. Pacific time through 10 p.m. Pacific time. So that is their launch window. But so far, they're actually tracking the beginning of their launch window. We actually have, we'll be able to pull up mission controls audio later on for you guys. But currently right now, it's all internal. But they're actually on track for a launch at the beginning of their launch window, which is, I don't know how they're doing this. I mean, this is the company's very first launch ever, and everything's running very smooth. So yeah, so pretty impressive, I'm being told to reload the pre-launch preview one more time. And so this is the mission name for this is FLTA 001, which is Dream. That's also the Dream mission. We'll talk about that in a second. This is Firefly's, as I've mentioned, their very first mission ever. The launch provider for this is, of course, Firefly. The customer who is paying for this. There are actually several customers from all around the world, and we'll be talking about some of those in a second. The rocket for this is Firefly's Alpha rocket. This is their first rocket. Now, of course, they've got kind of bigger plans down the road, but for now, this is a very impressive. It's actually currently the largest small sat launcher that is hitting the pad out of this new crop of small sat launchers. It's a very ambitious rocket. We'll keep talking about it here in a second. Launch location, this is taking off from SLC-2 out of Vandenberg Space Force Base, USA. This is actually a really cool launch. I should have pulled up, I have an old picture of me running at a Delta II rocket in my old flight suit. And the picture was real from, it was Orbcom, or what, not Orbcom, it was from OCO2, which was a carbon observatory mission that was launched on a Delta II back in like 2014, I believe. And I took that picture from that mission. That's the only mission I've actually been to in person at Vandenberg. And I had photoshopped myself in a flight suit. So this pad, I've spent a lot of time there because that day I remember they had problems rolling back the old launch tower. So it's cool to see it stripped down here for Firefly, how simple and elegant they've made everything. It's really cool to see it modernized. That was an old launch tower and a launch infrastructure. They've just clean slate design. It looks beautiful. It's so simple. It's just really cool to see what they've done to that place. So the payload mass for this. So today's mission is going to be, get this, 92 kilograms and 92 how do I even say this, and 100.115 kilograms, so about 203 pounds. That is a pretty light payload, but it's, it is a demonstration mission. It's pretty impressive that they're actually putting real payloads on their first mission. That's telling you something. These guys they're ready to go. They are ready to go. So all right, this is so where are these satellites going? They are going to a 300-kilometer low Earth orbit at a 137-degree inclination. That's right. This rocket's actually going to be flying backwards. It's literally flying a retrograde orbit. So it's beyond high inclination. It's actually getting to the point where it's like flying. It'll fly backwards around the world. But this is a good demonstration for them. I'm not entirely sure actually why they're doing a 137-degree inclination. For those of you that aren't quite familiar with inclinations, if you were to fly at so right straight east of like if you're on the equator, you flew at a 0-degree inclination, you'd go right around the equator. But normally you're kind of limited to your latitude. So if you fly out of, say, Kennedy Space Center at 28 degrees north, you're fixed to your kind of minimum without doing some big delta V maneuver is a 28-degree orbit. Inclined orbit. Now, if you're going around a polar orbit, normally those are about 90 degrees around the North and South Pole. It's 90 degrees from 0. So if you're going 180 degrees, you'd actually be flying completely backwards around the equator. This is a 137-degree inclination. Pretty crazy. Not too familiar with that. And also, just for a heads up too, we are aware that sometimes there's dropped frames coming from Firefly to us. There's nothing we can do about that, but we have good audio, and also when we start switching to other cameras, you'll see some other views that are going to be absolutely worth it, I promise. Okay. So the hold on. Okay, so my producer tells me that we might also still have some things wrong with the very the actual like core of the thing. We might have to refresh this feed in a little bit if it still remains choppy, but we'll give YouTube a little bit of time to see if it straightens out at all. But thank you for your patience, but we'll just keep going here for now. And if we have to refresh it in a little bit, we'll give that a try. So will they be attempting to recover the first stage? No, this is currently not a capability of Alpha. So the first stage will splash down in the Pacific Ocean. Will they be attempting to recover the fairings? And no, this also is not a capability Alpha. This is something that's something we've kind of got spoiled by, those of us that watch SpaceX missions. That's not actually normal really for any other launch provider. No other launch provider has even attempted to recover fairings so far. So as you would imagine too, with a first demonstration mission, that would be a little maybe too ambitious at the very beginning. Anyway, let's get this thing flying. Let's get it working before even trying to do any other tricks like that. So these fairings are new. Weather is currently, get this, I have never heard this in my entire life. The weather is 100%. There is the weather report earlier today was 0% chance of weather violating range restraints. So in other words, weather's fantastic, and that's very unusual for Vandenberg. Vandenberg is typically, we almost like joke that it's just called Vanden fog. So it happens to be not foggy today, and it's just beautiful. So yeah. All right. So this is the first fly, the first launch of Alpha, the first launch for Firefly, second launch from Vandenberg in 2021, and this is the 86th orbital launch attempt of 2021. So, and then of course we have, some more of this, but if you want to read more about this mission, what does it all mean? I kind of want to talk about some of the actual payloads on this mission, because there's a lot. So let's see, there's some non-technical payloads, because they actually let people submit ideas of things that they wanted to send to space on this mission. So, Liam, I'm going to absolutely not pronounce your name correctly. Fieldstead gave a photo for this mission. So he's flying a photo. There's Henry the Astronaut book from author Jonna Ocampo is going up on the mission. There is also LifeShip DNA samples. This is a company sending up little DNA capsules of from two various corners of our solar system. So pretty cool idea. So that's another thing that's flying. There's also a handful of technical payloads. So this has the Libre Space Foundation Pico bus, the FOSA systems FOSASat 1B/2, the AMSAT EA Genesis L/N. Then there's Hawaii Science and Technology Museum HIAPO. There's Teachers in Space Serenity, and there's Purdue University Spinnaker 3, which I believe is going to be their last payload deployed this evening, assuming that this vehicle makes it to orbit, which we're all cheering for, of course. So yeah, go ahead and read through this awesome pre-launch preview. We do have one more thing that I wanted to talk about that's really cool, and that's kind of where we're at right now. The mission timelines. Actually, Andrew can pull up a better looking version of this than what I've got so that we can read it a little bit easier on screen here. They actually began pad checkouts at T-8 hours. And then they powered up Alpha at T-7 hours. So this thing's been out there on the pad all day. At T-6 hours and 50 minutes, they did sensor checks. At T-6 hours, they did helium load, which is, of course, an inert gas that they use to backfill the rocket as it drains the fuel, so there aren't, any voids and it doesn't end up like crumpling. That's how you maintain pressure. Okay, we actually have something that we need to do right now on comms. Believe it or not, we're going to get official confirmation of our very first thing in our timeline down here. We're going to get confirmation of whether or not the pointy end is up and the flamey end is down from mission control. This is an official thing right now. Let's go ahead and listen in. We're going to get confirmation here from mission control. So we're going to be listening into mission control audio. And I wanted to go ahead and get confirmation that the pointy end of the rocket is up and flamey end is down. That's what PEUFED is on our timeline. Pointy end is up, flamey end is down. We're listening in here. Andrew, I don't know if it's in program yet, unless they're just very quiet.
LD, this is CRS.
This is CRS.
I just wanted to confirm that the pointy end is up and the flamey end is down.
Giddy up.
Giddy up.
I love that. I love that. I love... What? I love that we literally just got the pointy end is up and the flamey end is down confirmation from Launch Director Adam Oakes. That makes my day. That's like, how did that happen? How did that happen? Okay, that is hilarious. I love Firefly. This is so great. Okay, so back to what else has happened leading up to this point today too. At T-minus 5 hours and 15 minutes, they actually began loading RP-1. Now, RP-1, when they initially loaded into the rocket, it's just obviously kind of at room temp and at low pressures. And then which is interesting because take note that T-minus 4 hours and 30 minutes is when they did pad clear. So you can actually have the rocket with propellant inside the tanks, with fuel, especially RP-1, because it's not cryogenic. It doesn't need to be highly pressurized. So they can just fill it to safe levels to have humans still around. And actually, like the Atlas V does that as well. Pretty cool with RP-1 that it can operate at room temperature. So yeah, that's always fun. But then they do pad clearing before the LOX load in. So LOX load was at T-minus 3 hours and 40 minutes. So that's obviously why you start to see these cryogenic, the boil off here. You see all this, what looks like steam and stuff coming off of the rocket. That is actually liquid oxygen boiling off and becoming a gas because it's obviously very cold. Liquid oxygen is down around minus 200 degrees Celsius. And as it warms up from the ambient air temperature, it expands 1,000 times its size and becomes a gas. And obviously you don't want your things inside of a closed system, inside of a closed tank, expand 1,000 times without venting it. It'd be very bad. So that is why you're seeing so much of that condensation boiling off the rocket as we speak. And then we go into, so that's LOX load. So at T-minus 20 minutes, the countdown net is actually going to be going over the go no-go poll. Now, unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to share that audio with you, but we will be able to pick up audio soon after that. So we will actually have mission control audio shortly after that. Stage ignites at T-minus 1 second and 79 something 1.79 seconds, and liftoff obviously at T0. So yeah, that's pretty much that. But I did want to show you one more thing from our pre-launch preview here and kind of talk about this vehicle. So obviously, if you guys are on your phones or on your computers, you will see Firefly Alpha. And what's fun is we have a render here from Casper Stanley, who actually did a side-by-side comparison of Firefly's Alpha versus what I consider one of the, an awesome launch company, Rocket Lab with their Electron. We're all very familiar with that rocket. They've launched it many times. I just want you to take notice of the size difference of Firefly's Alpha. It is actually quite a large vehicle compared to the awesome Electron rocket. So that is a scale, and that's Casper for scale there compared to a human. So these are still, relatively small rockets in the grand scheme of rockets because they are small lift launchers. But one of the things that's really cool about this rocket is that it actually is also carbon composite, very similar to Rocket Lab's Electron. So this is actually the world's largest carbon composite rocket that will have ever attempted to fly to orbit. So that's pretty cool. Another thing that they do that's super unique on this vehicle is they run it on what's called Reaver Engines. And these Reaver Engines, what's awesome about them is they use a cycle type called the combustion tap-off cycle. And this is something that's never flown to orbit or never attempted to fly on an orbital vehicle. The BE-3 engine on Blue Origin's New Shepard uses a tap-off cycle, but that is not an orbital rocket. But that is actually, I think that might be the first tap-off cycle engine to ever make it above the Kármán line. This is the first time a company's attempting to use the tap-off cycle to get a rocket into orbit. The tap-off cycle is a really unique solution. It's relatively simple because you actually can remove your gas generator or your pre-burner from the engine, and you literally basically punch a hole in the side of your main combustion chamber, and you pipe that and have that actually be directed right at the turbine, which is what powers up your pumps. So the hard thing about that is normally one of the most difficult parts is, well, two things. How do you start that, right? How do you start your engine if it requires the main engine running in order to spin the pumps, and the pumps are what run the engine. So if the pumps aren't running, how do you get the engine running in the first place to get the pump spinning? Like, it just seems like one of those chicken and egg syndromes. What they actually do, though, is they will use nitrogen for the first stage. They'll use ground-based nitrogen to high pressure to spin up the pumps. They'll use that to spin through the turbine, get the pump spinning up to operational pressures. Once the engine is up to stable combustion, then that will take over and continue to run the pumps at that point. But the hard part about it too is that the engines typically run closer to stoichiometric ratios, which is a lot hotter than what you typically run a turbine with a pre-burner or a gas generator. Normally those temperatures are quite a bit lower. You run them very fuel rich usually, or sometimes, if you're like the Soviet engines, they would always, almost always run oxygen rich, but you run it far away from anywhere near stoichiometric, and that allows them to be cooler and keeps it so your turbo pump machinery will not melt. So that's another challenge, is how do you solve that? How do you, and to be honest, I have no idea how they solved it. I have no idea how they make it so you can use the main combustion exhaust gas to spin the pumps. It just seems absolutely crazy to me. They solved it. It's a really cool solution, and they're using it on both their first stage and their second stage. So they also will use, they have a Lightning engine on the upper stage, and the Lightning engine produces about a third the amount of thrust, if I remember, 75 kilonewtons versus total of 300. Yeah, so I think it's like 3 or 4 times 184. So yeah, about 2.5 times less powerful. And there's a single one of those as opposed to the 4 Reavers on the first stage. But yeah, it's really cool. But in order to get that one started, now you might go, if they were using ground-based nitrogen, how did they get that started? The vehicle has some high-pressure helium bottles to spin up the second stage pumps. And helium is a better choice when it's on a rocket that needs to restart in air. Because it's a lot lighter than trying to compress nitrogen. Nitrogen, for the same amount of energy, basically, it's a lot more dense, so it'd be a lot heavier. So that's our pre-launch preview, and we need to thank Flo from our website crew for writing that pre-launch preview. Again, if you guys have questions, go check that out. I promise you'll hopefully learn a lot more than what I just blabbed on about, which is crazy because we're already at T-minus 30 minutes. I've been blabbing way too much. I haven't got to any of your awesome. I really appreciate all the people that are asking questions. We will get to those, I promise. And don't worry, we've got plenty of time for Coast. And I'm sure, not sure actually, at this point, they're kind of scaring me. They're actually going to go right at the top of their window, which is nuts, which means that, that's a great thing. So obviously, like we mentioned, at T-minus 20 minutes, we do expect Mission Control to give the final go, no-go poll and get into the terminal countdown. That's kind of what we're waiting on next, which is coming up in 13 minutes. But meanwhile, I wanted to do a little camera walkthrough with you guys because we actually have some really awesome cameras here for you guys, and I'm really, really excited about them. So, yeah, take a look at this. This is one of our main shots. Again, we do apologize that some of the frame rates are relatively low, but we might have to work some issues on the back end. But, yeah, just enjoy these for now, and we'll keep going here. So this is another shot really close to the back of the strong back. And the flame trench, I believe, goes off from here to either the right or the middle. But yeah, super cool shot. The strong back is what lifts the rocket up and supports it as it awaits launch. Super cool. Next up, we've got another shot. This would be a cool shot to see the rocket go through once it kind of clears the strong back and clears the tower, basically, is what that would be. Then we've got another shot. This isn't the one that's tracking, is it, Andrew? Oh, this one is. That's a close tracking camera. That's a very close tracking camera. That camera will actually move with the rocket and track it as it begins to ascend off the pad. So that will be one that'll be really fun to check in on soon after launch. All right, next shot, Andrew. This is also another tracking asset. This one's actually infrared, which is very necessary at Vandenberg because normally these rockets end up flying straight into clouds or through fog and you can't see anything. And tracking assets are actually valuable for the launch provider and for the range to make sure there aren't the vehicle's not having an anomaly. And if the vehicle does have an anomaly, it's good data to be able to look back on and see if there's, all the data, the better. And here is another infrared camera as well. So again, basically right back into, having the ability to fly through clouds and all that stuff. This one's actually really cool. It's from like very far away on a separate mountain and it's a little bit shaky, but it's also because it's, very, very zoomed in on a long telephoto lens to be able to get that shot. That is also a really cool camera there too. So from the range assets. Now, next up, we have a camera that I cannot wait. I cannot believe we actually talked them into this. And for those of you that watched, I actually launched or streamed when China sent a rover to Mars. We stumbled upon Trench Cam, and ever since then, I have dreamed of this day when we can officially provide for you guys Trench Cam. So how awesome is that? This is full blown Trench Cam City. Like, this is an actual camera right there. Trench Cam, I can't believe it. We got access to Trench Cam. But believe it or not, Firefly, again, I'm not trying to butter their biscuits too much here, guys, but the level of transparency this company has had has just been amazing. They basically just keep saying, sure, sounds good to us. You just do your thing. We were asking if there's a camera that could show engine gimbaling, and we can't show this very long. We're going to show you a real quick little preview, but then we have to turn it off. We have engine cam. We have flamey end cam. That's all we're going to show you for now, but we will be able to show you that at ignition, which, come on. If that's not the coolest thing, what? Yeah, so that's awesome. Trench cam, and this is blowing me away. We actually had an official pointy end up, flaming end down check. We have trench cam, and they even took it another level up and took it into engine cam, into flamey cam. So flamey end cam, yeah, unbelievable. So yeah. So that gets us into waiting here. We basically have 9 minutes where I'm going to answer a couple of you guys' questions until we wait to hear about the terminal count. So I wanted to first just thank off all of you that are tuning in and that have decided to become members or super chats. Of course, that helps me pursue things like this and try to provide streams for you guys as well. So thank you so much to members. Members, and of course Patreon supporters, get ready because I'm almost done with the massive dialogue cut of the infamous family tree of the Soviet rocket engines. It's my most ambitious video ever to date. I've been working on it for way too long, and I'm really, really excited. Oh, look at that. We got some venting. That's cool. And I just need to mention too, by the way. Okay, so we'll get back into the Soviet rocket engine fiasco of me spending way too much time on it. But I do want to point out, don't forget this rocket is black. It's entirely carbon fiber. But you will notice that it looks half black, half white right now. And of course, that is because that's where the liquid oxygen tanks are. So the liquid oxygen tanks are what hold on to the liquid oxygen, obviously, and they're still black carbon composite, just like the rest of the rocket. But the craziest thing is that obviously that's really cold. Like I mentioned, it's almost minus 200 degrees Celsius. So that means that ice will end up building because there's obviously a lot of water vapor in the air. Ice will end up building onto it, and you actually have a layer of ice on the rocket, which is why it's white in those spots. So it is a black rocket, but when it's fueled up and ready for launch, that thing ends up being half black, half white, which is just wild to see. It's just weird to see the actual physical formation of ice on a rocket that's going to have a flame that would melt anything, basically, coming out of the other end of it. I just love that. I think that's super cool. So, yeah. So in Discord, someone said it's entered zebra mode. Hunter Cut says the rocket has entered zebra mode. That's how you know this thing's ready. It is in zebra mode. So very, very, very cool. Yeah. So again, thanks to all of you guys. Get ready for those YouTube members and Patreon supporters. Get ready. We will be putting up a very rough version of the dialogue cut of that Soviet rocket engine video. It's coming in, actually, I think I read it a little faster than I normally do because it's so long, and I think it might only be about an hour and a half in length, which is crazy. Maybe an hour and 40. But for those of you that like my long form documents, like basically documentary style stuff, this will be the ultimate one. I promise you that it will be the ultimate one. So let's see. I really like this sentiment here from our friend Musical Wolves. Very, very excited to see a launch instead of political space issues. Any launch is exciting. Team Space is awesome. Congratulations on hosting the official stream. Well, thank you so much to Musical Wolves. Yeah, again, we're just beyond thrilled to be able to do this along with you guys. Of course, my goal here at this channel is to bring space down to earth for everyday people and just help you get excited about space flight. And I personally believe the easiest way to get excited about aerospace is to actually be learning about aerospace, is to learn some of those little odds and ends and start, learning about how this stuff works. Because I think when you're educated about a subject, that's when you really get excited about it. So obviously the whole goal of Everyday Astronaut is just simply to break down stuff that's complicated and try to make it explainable to you guys, normally through long form content that is, you know, has a lot of good visuals because I'm a very visual learner. But yeah, just this is the ultimate dream for me, having a rocket provider actually wanting me to stream their launch. It's just crazy. So, all right. So let's see. This is interesting. This is from Wily Coyote, again, about the buffer issues. If you guys have problems still with the feed, try refreshing or going back in the feed a little bit. But if we need to, we might have to refresh one more time, but I think it's probably stabilized a little bit. Again, the dropped frames of the rocket will probably maintain. That's been a persistent issue for us with this transport. But yeah, we appreciate your patience and hanging out with us. We think it's pretty cool that we have all these camera options and that we get this much insight to everything. So not bad for a first stream of an official rocket company. All right, so this is a good question again from Musical Wolves. Do the fairings have trackers even though they aren't being recovered? Are fairings considered space debris? Well, don't forget, fairings normally deploy soon after stage separation of a rocket. So when the first stage and second stage separates, the first stage typically ends up splashing down only, you know, 200, 300, 400, 500 kilometers downrange, depending on the trajectory and the mission. That's where the first stage splashes down. Now, the fairing will remain attached to the upper stage, which will accelerate it a little bit more. But normally, the fairings deploy soon after second stage engine ignition. So second stage will, you know, kind of run for a couple seconds or, you know, 20, 30 seconds, and then they'll do stage fairing separation. So those fairings are not yet orbital. Those fairings are still suborbital at that point because the vehicle, you know, it takes another 6 minutes or so of acceleration to get a vehicle up to orbital velocity. So because they ditched their fairings before they orbit. Oh, interesting. Apparently we're getting double face. Yes, it was. That was 100% my fault. We were seeing streams come up on my face. I am sorry. So anyway, so don't forget the vehicle doesn't actually get into orbit until much later on, several minutes later. So the fairings are still suborbital when they let go, which means they splash down 500, 600, 700 kilometers downrange. So they don't need to be tracked in space because they won't maintain orbit or anything. They will come back down 10 to 15 minutes after launch and then become little boats for a little bit and eventually be succumbed to the ocean where they become a coral reef. So yeah. Let's try to get to a couple more questions. Yes, this is a good question here from Norbert Daniels. Again, if you guys are asking good questions, we'll try to pull them up on stream when we have time. Doesn't a retrograde orbit mean more delta V required? So doesn't it mean more energy to get into a retrograde orbit? And the answer is 100% yes. So normally, obviously, if you're launching prograde, if you're launching with the rotation of the Earth, you get that extra bit of spin. So the Earth is helping, quite literally flinging you and giving you almost, I believe it's almost 1,000 meters per second, almost a kilometer of delta V. Is that right? Can someone let me know? I don't remember. Or is it only like 400? I don't quite remember offhand. I'm sure Discord will know. But yeah, so the cool thing there is that that the Earth normally helps you get into orbit. Now, when you're going into a polar orbit, you actually kind of have to negate the rotation of the Earth, and when you're going into a retrograde orbit, you have to go opposite of the rotation of the Earth. So it's it's actually really hard. But remember, again, this rocket is capable of taking almost a ton, a metric ton to low Earth orbit, and in that case, launching only 98 kilograms is nothing. So yeah. Yeah, let me see if I was right. 460 meters per second at the equator. Thank you, Green Cobalt and meters per second at the equator. Thank you, Green Cobalt and Discord. Yes, I was way off. It's not a full kilometer of delta V. It's more like 400 or 350 probably from northern latitude. So yeah, so thank you very much for that. From Hunter saying the Firefly colors and everyday astronaut graphics is amazing. I love their color scheme. I think it's super cool. I love seeing that we actually have the Firefly green up on our screen as opposed to my typical orange. It's just fun to see. It's fun to see that kind of partnership. So yeah, huge shout out to Gravity Coast, to Allie for all the graphics that she's done. This has been a fun, and then Andrew also, our producer, making it into a cool interactive thing like this for you guys. So yeah, you guys, I have an awesome team. We'll put it that way. Let's see. This is a really good thing that I want to bring up. from Orange, man. Good evening, Tim, Ryan, and Mary Liz from Cosmic Perspective had a fantastic launch of their Road to Mars series. Have I seen it? I had to stop what I was doing today, set aside the 30 minutes to watch the first episode of Road to Mars from Cosmic Perspective because it was incredible. Those two work on something so hard and put so much effort into their videos. It's just unheard of. Their way of storytelling is amazing. If you guys aren't familiar, obviously, with Cosmic Perspective, they are who help us a lot during, obviously, during Starship launches down in South Texas. But, you know, it's really fun to see how they do storytelling, how they share their images. And it's just been an awesome partnership. So I'm so proud of the work they do. And that made me teary-eyed. Now, give us a second here. I believe we may or may not be trying to refresh the camera feeds here. So hopefully we can try to eke out a little less lag here for you guys, but we will get them back in just a second while we continue to answer questions. So this is a great question from Razenbot. Many light launchers now, do you think they will all find a place on the launch market? That's actually kind of the ultimate question to me as an aerospace fan is there are a lot. I mean, I did a video about the small sat launchers that are kind of coming online right now, comparing some of the ones that are getting really, really close to flying. And Firefly obviously was in that. And I kind of said at the end of the video, I personally believe, you know, if you can get a rocket on the pad and get launching and attempting to launch this year, you're probably on track for, you know, survivability. But if your first rocket for small sat launch is 3, 5, 10 years away, you're probably going to be just too late unless you do something totally groundbreaking, something completely different. Yeah, but I think right now there is still some room for a little bit more. You know, a couple more in the game. There's some really exciting rocket companies that are coming online here, and yeah, I think like I said, I think if you have a rocket on the pad this year, you're looking pretty good. But the race is definitely on. So Firefly, if they happen to get to orbit, I need to mention, by the way, guys, I don't even know if I've said this. At least no private company's liquid fueled rocket, or no private company's first rocket has ever made it to orbit on its first attempt. The closest would probably be the Electron, Rocket Lab's Electron. The vehicle was actually good. They lost a ground track station that allowed them to continue tracking the rockets. They actually had to terminate their first launch, but they were close. They probably would have done it, sans that. If Firefly happens to make it to orbit today, which again, remember, this is a test flight. This is the first launch of a brand new vehicle from a brand new company. If they get off the pad and start making some data, that's going to be progress for them, right? So we just want to cheer on any progress. But yeah, they're aiming for orbit. They're going for orbit fully. It's really impressive. You have to think about all the extra details, you know, the guidance and telemetry. Okay. Poll is done. They are go for launch. That's awesome news. So we are now within terminal count. They're actually going for the beginning of their launch window for a new rocket company to be attempting their very first launch at the beginning of the launch window. This is super impressive. I'm starting to get chills here. This is awesome news. So yeah, that is super. I can't believe that. I'm sorry. I've been tracking this program for so long now that it's just hard to believe that they're actually going for it already at the beginning of the launch window on their first attempt. So let's see. Yeah, this is nuts. The enthusiasm on my end, guys. I'm sorry. I will probably move the mic when it gets closer to launch. I actually try to tamp my enthusiasm on air, believe it or not. I know that sounds impossible, but I get really, when I've been working on this stuff, you know, and following it for so long, you know, you get really wrapped up in it. Just like sports fans, you guys know what that's like. I guess I am a ultimate spaceflight nerd, and I get really excited about this stuff as well. So yeah, I would never, like I said, I actually try to tamp it down a little bit for you guys, but I'm starting to get chills just thinking that we're only 16, 17 minutes away from T0. This is crazy. So yeah, we're going to keep going. So actually that made me think about, you know, I've been following this company for a while, but the first video that I ever saw of them, they released about a year ago, I think, maybe a little beyond a year ago. And it was them reaching out to ask people if they wanted to have their payloads flown. So Andrew, if we have that video, I actually wanted to roll that. And also I wanted to roll, we also have some really cool footage from them from some of their testing campaign, because this company has really, really, really cool stuff. So we're gonna pull that up here for you guys in just a second. Like I said, this was the first video I saw.
Making space for everyone has been an essential part of Firefly's vision and dream since the day we began. We've been working tirelessly for the past few years to develop Alpha, a game-changing small satellite launch vehicle. And finally, our first launch is within sight. I'm proud to announce today that we're extending the capacity of our inaugural launch to you. That means we've reserved a spot on Alpha for you to send up whatever dream payload you can think of. We're calling the flight opportunity Dedicated Research and Education Accelerator Mission, or Dream Payload. We encourage educational institutions, startup space entrepreneurs, or any other institution that has big space dreams to visit firefly.com and tell us about your dream space payload. On the website, you'll find all the details and specifications you need. We look forward to hearing from you as Firefly marches toward first flight, perhaps with your dream payload aboard.
So yeah, like I said, that happens to be the first video that I ever really caught of them, because they've actually been around for a while, but they had a restructure of their business. They used to be Firefly Space Systems, now they're Firefly Aerospace. So they actually had a clean slate rocket. So they basically started over only about 4 years ago and got out to the pad this quickly, which is extremely impressive. Again, everything I'm talking about, by the way, is like unscripted. It's just me talking to you guys about this stuff, which again, thank you, Firefly, for even trusting me with any of this stuff. But yeah, so it's pretty impressive to me, again, as an outside perspective, to go from a clean slate design and a new company restructure to only 4 years later having a rocket at the pad. Honestly, super cool. Another base out of Austin, Texas, their headquarters. Oh, also good news is we can actually listen in. We're going to pull up mission control audio. So if anything does come up over the comms, we will hear it live with you guys. So we'll all be informed together. Again, another transparency thing from Firefly. They're giving us a listen in to their mission control. Super, super cool. There is actually a few more videos. So, you know, as Tom walked away there, you did see that there's...
14 minutes. RC, please contact the range and coordinate to begin recording RF tapes at T-minus 10 minutes.
Confirm.
This field. Sweet. They're going for it. They're going for it. This is crazy. So, okay. There was a few more videos. Like I said, they have an awesome set of videos for their testing campaign. I actually wanted to run just a few of those testing videos for you guys because it's really cool. So this that you'll see is a startup of 2 of their Reaver engines.
Ground side separation between T-pad and synchro verification has completed. T-minus 13 to T-minus 10, we will now record action. In the event of an abort, we will perform the following steps. We'll confirm there are no fires around the engine, utilizing siren without by LT. Running fires using we'll confirm vehicle health. Pre-valves are closed. Bubbles active. That's when verify other vehicle things. Confirm ground side health. 2 tank advantage. Spin system active. To confirm that the range we're clear to be starting power down the
Starting to hear you.
We'll power off stage 1, stage 2 FTS.
I just wanted to kind of point out a few things here about these videos. So this is at their site, which is about 45 or an hour northwest of Austin, Texas, kind of in the middle of Texas. But this is one of my favorites because it is the all-up test of their first stage booster. That's the one that we see right here, right now. This is performed, I believe, last year. Now I wanted to notice the engine gimbaling there. I wanted to call out something interesting about the way that their engines steer. They're actually only single-axis gimbals, but because you have 4 engines, 2 of them can go on one axis and 2 of them can go on the other axis. So between the 4 engines, you actually have all 4 axes of control. Now, this is also a little clip from one of their, this is a short duration static fire they had at Vandenberg Air Force Base on the pad just about 2 weeks ago, I believe. They did some static fire testing. I just thought this was really cool. Slow motion video. You gotta love it. You will notice there's a bright green flash at the beginning of the burn, and that is using TTEB. So they use the same igniter fuel that the Falcon 9 uses to light up its engine, and that's triethyl aluminum, triethyl borine, which is a pyrophoric fluid. So as soon as that comes in contact with liquid oxygen, it begins to combust. So it's a nice, simple ignition fluid. Super cool. So you actually could see that at the beginning of that attempt. So yeah, we're going to keep listening in here to comms. We're hearing a little bit of chatter. It's fun to hear some of that stuff about, like, you know, what if this or that happens? They're going over all their procedures. But we are within T-minus 10 minutes. I kind of can't believe it. Yeah, this is pretty wild. But yeah, real quick again, back to the engine gimbal. So I want to be able to use my hands to talk because that's how I normally talk. So basically, you have a set of engines that can gimbal this way, a set of engines that can gimbal this way. And between them, you can do roll by having them all kind of gimbal opposite each other, or even a pair just gimbal opposite of each other. You can go, you know, pitch or yaw just by using a set, and, you know, basically together to be able to do pitch or yaw with those 4 engines on just a single gimbal axis. That's pretty unique. But it's one of those kind of simple things, like why put 2-axis gimbals on every engine if you can get away with only using one? You know, the best part is no part. So super cool. Man, yeah, again, sorry, I'm still just like, I'm trying to catch up to the idea that this thing's actually going to launch in T-minus 9 minutes and 40 seconds. All right, so let's see. Yeah, so this was again from Musical Wolves asking about trench cam. Again, I hope that you guys saw our camera walkthrough. Andrew's kind of giving you guys a little taste of things, but we do have trench cam in this broadcast, which is unbelievable. Super, super, super cool. So we're really, really excited to be able to show that. Now that'll get obviously completely smoked out almost immediately.
See, countdown 1, range confirms, recorders are on.
Copy.
So basically, they're tracking assets, the cameras are on and recording, which is a good thing, because especially when the vehicle is fueled up at this point, it is awesome to be able to see it at that capacity. So, all right, so this is a nice little fun thing. Best first launch stream from any company. Hope it doesn't go sideways. Yeah, there's been some, you know, the most recent Astra launch was unbelievable. I couldn't believe with the NSF crew doing that stream, the fact that the rocket made it off away from the pad and began to actually ascend was really cool. I was cheering like crazy. I was doing the disbelief sign, you know, like what? As it was power setting off, it was an incredible amount of guidance and control for that rocket.
Can we get Stage 1 fuel tank repress?
But again, really excited that this rocket is ready to go. That Firefly is letting us stream their first attempt ever. Like that's so cool.
It's up on the left screen.
Go ahead.
Copy.
You go ahead and change that. Flight software takes care of it for what we want in the last 30 seconds, so you're good to support.
Cool. All right, let's keep going here. So yeah, again, this is from Alexander asking, how does retrograde orbit affect payload capabilities? So it can be, I think it's about, so normally if you're going from like a normal prograde orbit to say a polar orbit, you lose about 30% of your performance. I'm actually not sure. I think you still lose only about 30, maybe a little more when you go retrograde. I think you would actually lose a little bit more. But you, like I said, though, you do actually have to still negate your velocity, your rotational velocity when you go into polar anyway. But yeah. All right. This is from Kyle Jones. This indeed is their first orbital launch ever of their Alpha vehicle. Again, super impressive that they are streaming this entirely. I mean, I just feel like that's pretty transparent. I think as far as I remember, and I got corrected on this, the only other company that ever did that was SpaceX with their Falcon 1 way back in the day. Way back in the day, they did that. We had some people kind of asking about size and everything. I should kind of remind you guys of the size here. This thing is about 30 meters tall, so 95 feet tall. So it's like I said, it's a pretty good size small sat launcher. Andrew, I actually do have that chart pulled up here if we want to give kind of people a size comparison compared to some other small lift launch vehicles. But yeah, it's basically 30 meters tall, 95 feet tall. So it is, yeah, it's a good sized rocket. and it is sorry. Then as far as width though too, it's 1.8 meters wide, so it's on par. It's almost the exact same width actually as Virgin Orbit. But yeah, if you compare it here to the Falcon 9, you can see still how big a medium class rocket is. Quite a bit larger than these vehicles, but Firefly's Alpha is actually a very big small lift launch vehicle. As far as small lift launch vehicles go, it is quite large. So yeah, again, if you guys have questions about how Firefly's aerospace, their Alpha rocket compares to other launch vehicles, we do have that up at our website too. We had a video comparing all of these rockets together that you see on screen right now here on YouTube. So after this launch, if you have questions about how this vehicle compares to others, go ahead and check out that video. It should give you a good rundown. Let's listen in. It should give you a good rundown on kind of everything, and especially this vehicle as well, to kind of tell you about the tap-off cycle a little bit and stuff like that. But yeah, again, let's see here. So
please begin dispositioning LCC gate checks for T-minus 2 minute checks. Attention all, any no-go at this time will be an automatic abort. Again, at the T-minus 2 minute call, any no-go will be an automatic abort.
In work.
So that was in work. So
T-minus 5 minutes, the strong back is secured in its launch position.
Wow. All right. So that is the strong back retract. Andrew, go ahead and check that off on the list. That is awesome. That's a good sign that things are moving forward on time. I can't believe this. It's running so smoothly for a first launch to, wow. I don't even know how they're doing this. So the next thing we're going to be seeing here in just a couple minutes, we might hear the call out for it actually any second here, will be that the flight termination system is armed. And actually, I think that call out is going to be around T-minus 4 minutes. We should hear that on the net. And that's going to be the system that if the vehicle were to happen to have an anomaly and start to stray off course, they have the ability to terminate the rocket in flight, which is a good thing, you know, because they're obviously...
LC, this is CD1. We're about 1 minute to close on the LCCs for T-minus 2.
Copy. T-minus 4 minutes, FTS, please confirm FTRs are active and range is transmitting check channel 4.
FTS confirms that FTRs are active and range is transmitting check channel 4.
Note, the ARM Enable 2 command must be received by the ESAD within 30 seconds of receiving the ARM Enable 1 command. FTS, send ARM Enable 1 command to all ESADs.
ARM Enable 1 command being sent in 3, 2, 1, mark.
FTS, send ARM Enable 2 command to all ESADs.
ARM Enable 2 command being sent in 3, 2, 1, mark.
FTS, confirm when all ESADs are enabled.
All ESADs are armed.
FTS is armed. All right, well, we can check that one off.
3 minutes, fuel bleed will begin.
Okay, so the next thing on our list, they will actually do an engine gimbal check here at about T-minus 2 minutes, if I remember right. We won't be able to show you that, but we will hear confirmation, hopefully, over the net that is indeed go. And they'll also do a go for launch here. They'll do the go for launch at T-minus 2 minutes. So we'll listen into that and hear, hopefully, from Launch Director Adam Oakes that everything is still good to go. That is kind of the final thing. Like, assuming it's all good to go from here, they're going to light this candle in just 2 minutes.
LCC on CD1. T-minus 2 minutes. Let's go.
Copy.
I think that was go for launch already. That was... Okay.
T-minus 2 minutes. CE has performed the final check against LCC-10. This is the final commit for launch. Chief Engineer.
Send it.
Launch Director.
Go.
LDA.
LDA, you're go for launch.
Thank you. Step 3.9 to 29. VC verify alpha transitions to autonomous mode at T-minus 30 seconds. To stop the count, operators declare abort, abort, abort on CD1 and VC will abort the auto.
60 seconds.
So they will begin engine ignition at T-minus just about 2 seconds. So
Complete's doing its thing.
we'll see the green flash around then. And our clock might be a tiny bit off. We apologize for that if it is within a couple seconds, but it's good enough for now.
30 seconds.
BC verify alpha transition to autonomous mode.
Autonomous.
RC give the final 10-second countdown on the net with positive calls.
Abort. Which
We've aborted.
I think they're going.
Confirm there are no fires on the video.
See no fires on the video.
GC close world purges.
Oh, was that an abort? That was an
BC
abort.
confirm the following 3 valves are closed.
World bridge closed.
Did
3 valves are closed.
Confirm helium bubble
Abort.
is active.
Helium bubble is active.
Confirm S1 fuel tank is maintaining between 30 and 36 psia.
Maintaining pressure.
And all other tanks are vented.
Vented.
GC confirm the following T-type tank is vented.
Barely in the terminal count though.
Vented.
Confirm TBC tank is vented.
Venting.
Confirm spin system is vented and cavity purges are active. BC verify the following. C Rio is in the release safe state.
Standby 1.
Spin system is vented. Cavity purges are active.
Thank you.
Now, just a little heads up, guys.
Serio's in the safe state.
Friendly reminder here that
Confirm
this
vehicle
vehicle, they do have a
SSW
4-hour
manual
launch
state
window, so
and
it's
the auto sequence.
not over yet. They had
Manual
something
state
similar
and auto
to this
sequence is complete.
when they did their static fire.
On
They actually were
CD1,
able
the
to
release
get 2
system is
static
now
fires in
safe.
during their
FTS
window.
confirmed with the
So,
range we're okay to disarm and power down the ESAD.
And work.
CRS
So we're gonna listen here.
57 pad area camera scan.
Yes, sir.
okay, so we're going to let them work the issue here, and we will await to hear from them on anything official if there's a chance to reset today. Which there might be a chance to reset. Andrew, when you get a second, go ahead and put abort on the T+ clock. But yeah, that's obviously again, this is completely, frankly, expected on my end. I would assume that the very first launch, there's going to be a couple things that they need to just kind of tweak. And they want to be extra cautious again. You know, you don't want to just send the vehicle if there's anything that triggers any kind of abort, obviously. So they must have seen something that didn't quite look right. They're going to be going over all of their, go over everything and see if there is a chance to recycle today and go for a launch opportunity again. Again, remember, there is a 4-hour launch window today. But the fact that they got that far into the terminal count on their first time, of their first ever orbital rocket, again, was way ahead of my expectations. I can't believe we're even launching on their first launch day opportunity. There is a backup tomorrow if there is something that if they actually need to defuel the rocket and go out and tweak on it. That will be likely a scrub for the day. But if the vehicle's fine and the systems are good, we'll give her a check out and they'll hopefully be able to repress and go for another attempt here this evening. So fingers crossed, we'll wait to hear from them as soon as we can. But in the meantime, this is why it's fun to be able to have you guys to hang out with, because I am waiting just like you. So yeah, so everyone just send a quick little, send some love off to Firefly and some patience virtues, because this is rocket science. So this happens even to the most flown rockets in existence will still have things happen like this as well. So, so yeah, we'll just give them a little bit of patience, let them work the issue, of course, do their job, and hope that they can, you know, maybe reset for today. If not, we will be here tomorrow. So, hang on. I'm just getting confirmation here. Okay, we just got official confirmation that they are recycling and going for another attempt. Now, we'll update our clock here as soon as we know. Andrew, this is actually probably a good time if you want to pull up a video here. I'm going to take a little break, do some tweeting, updating people that were waiting a new T0 time. We'll get back in as soon as we can. I'll probably just take a quick little break. And then what I'll be able to do at that point, too, is hopefully get a little bit more information for you guys. And so we can update you guys, but then we'll answer a bunch of your questions. So you guys have been awesome. I like that you that again, Firefly's trusting me to just answer questions on the fly. Super cool. I love that they're just basically treating it as my stream, and they're just allowing us to see it. So again, thank you, Firefly. You guys are awesome. So that being said, I'm just going to take a real quick little break while we wait to hear about the recycle and while we await a new T0 time. So don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Firefly is growing very rapidly. We're looking for new team members that are into the mission of new space. Going to space is probably about the hardest thing you can do. If you can achieve it, you've done what is seemingly impossible. We're not just buying other people's stuff and putting it together. We have to engineer all the pieces, parts, put them into assemblies, and test them for the first time. We have to solve problems that none of us have solved before. Firefly's goal is to build a rocket that can get small satellites to space. The kind of people I'm looking for here at Firefly are people that have fire in their belly, that have a passion for space, but not just that, they're people that have distinguished themselves in their career in academics. They know their subject, they're serious people who like to get things done. I'm not really hung up on getting people that are experts in rockets right up from the outset. I want people that are very technically astute and have a passion for space and can learn the things they need to know to build rockets.
The challenges and problems make you dig deep and think like you've never thought before.
I made the modifications for the thrust chamber to interface with the new...
You get to imagine things and try and make them a reality.
This place is fast-paced. You always have your next goal. We're always hustling.
At Firefly, you'll get opportunities to have a meaningful leadership role in a company right from the outset that you wouldn't get at a larger company. Space has always been intriguing, but what's unique about this time now is that there's big business to be had in space. Its estimates are on the order of $3.2 trillion in revenue by 2045, dwarfing any other business.
Final configuration. Operator, please check NPTO1.
Everyone at Firefly partially owns the company. So if you come to Firefly, you'll get equity. If we become wildly successful, everybody's going to get carried along and you're going to do very well financially.
We're all owners of the company, so we're very motivated to get to launch. Even those who aren't going to be very rich are going to be very comfortable.
Firefly is in a stronger position than it's ever been. We have an investor that's dedicated to pay the entire bill to get us to space. We do need some more people to help us get to the next level, but everything is in great shape right now at Firefly. People are the most important thing at Firefly. You know, I'm the CEO, but I'm out in the field working with the team on building the rocket engines. We're just a bunch of guys and gals trying to do something amazing. You won't find hierarchy here or a lot of roadblocks or bureaucracy.
The culture's very sort of family-like.
Test execution. RE. Verify blue lines are met. Operator, stand by manual abort. Start camera recording and start auto sequence and provide a countdown.
Starting auto sequence. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Firefly is great because you really feel like that you're putting your personal touch on this vehicle and on this system.
Just an amazing feeling.
Working here, you get an opportunity to work on something that's going to be very impactful, literally extending humanity's reach into the universe. And that's something, in addition to being economically secure, you can look back in your old age and be proud of and talk to your grandkids about.
Right, and welcome back. Unfortunately, we don't have any new updates for you guys for a new T0 time, but that's okay because we can use this time to answer some of your guys' questions. Again, I will try to do everything in my power to get to as many of these questions as possible, but with the amount of people watching right now, we probably won't be able to keep up with everything. We definitely can't keep up with everything, but if we have good questions, they don't have to be super chats, guys. We put up lots of just regular chats for you guys. If it's a good question, we'll try to get to it. But yeah, I really enjoy the fact that that we are able to just kind of hang out with you guys together. So it feels like we're all watching this together. So there was a chance for a little while. I was working on trying to do this in person. Unfortunately, I'm still recovering from COVID. I'm feeling 99% better, but energy swings are pretty massive still, even 3 or 4 weeks out later. So, so that being said, we are doing this all remotely, but there are probably some people out there in California that are buddied up, parked around Vandenberg Air Force Space Force Base. Sorry, not Air Force Base. So hopefully there's people that are there to watch it in person and watch this launch attempt today. So we're still hoping. Again, there is a 4-hour launch window here today. So there is a chance that this vehicle will recycle and they will be able to go for another attempt here within that 4-hour period. So we are officially only 10 minutes into the launch window. So they have plenty of time left. So, yeah, so just to confirm, I did see some people asking, yes, Firefly, the company, is in Texas, and they do their testing. Their headquarters is in Austin, but they are launching out of Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. So they're launching on the West Coast. Yeah. So let's see. This is a good question from Crypto. Are there engineering cams so we can see the rocket after T plus like 100 seconds? We actually do have a onboard camera that we will be able to show once this vehicle leaves the pad. That is something we will be able to show for you guys. And the other fun thing about this too is, again, that we have the awesome tracking camera assets from Vandenberg Space Force Base. So we will have some of the best telescopes in the world pointing at this vehicle, and we are able to share those views with you guys. So yeah, so stand by. Again, hopefully if this thing does happen to go off today, we will be able to show you all of the normal views. Plus, there, of course, with any rocket launch, you do have moments where you are not over top of a ground tracking station. So therefore, there are moments where you don't have video link and data. So, so during those periods, those are known loss of signal pockets, basically known blackout periods. So we'll let you guys know about that if that is if that actually is a thing. This is from NASA Spaceflight. Our friends at NASA Spaceflight just wanted to pull this up, saying Buran was better than Shuttle because of Energia. And I would agree with that. Energia was incredible. Again, we will be talking about that quite a bit in my video about the entire history of Soviet rocket engines. And yeah, Energia was just an incredible rocket. And yeah, stand by for that. Again, hopefully I'm getting pretty far into the dialogue cut of this massive video, and Patreon members and YouTube members will get be able to see a version of it where it's just me talking. Basically, I have almost no B-roll, but what I'm going to do, because this video is so overwhelmingly complicated with literally like 100 engines on this chart, I will put the chart up on screen for you guys as I'm kind of talking about stuff. So so you won't be totally left in the cold, because otherwise that would be a really hard video to watch, is me just sitting there talking to you for an hour and a half. Even, you know, as a perk, as a little preview, but still, that would be, I don't even think I could do that. So, all right. Let's see. This is a fun one. This is from astronaut candidate Arthur Channel. This is 100 plus 6th grade students at Beckman Middle School with Todd Cohorst standing by waiting to watch Henry the astronaut fly to space. That is so cool. Todd's responsible for education outreach, CDC's mission microgravity. That is super cool. Well, hello to all of the students over there at Beckman Middle School. For those of you tuning in, that's very awesome. We're excited to hopefully see your payload launch to space today. Again, this is rocket science, and there are delays to be. We have a new T0, my friends, and it's not too far off, actually. That's pretty impressive. Wow, okay. They are going for a new local T0 time of 6:59. Interesting that they didn't just go with 7, but 6:59. I'm going to go ahead and tweet that here for a second. Give me 1 second. Wait, what would that be? That'd be 1:59 UTC. 6:59 Pacific, PM Pacific. That would be 1:59 UTC. Awesome. All right, so we've got the clock back to T minus 44 minutes and counting. That's not bad. That's a pretty quick recycle. That's good for those of us that are spaceflight fans. Again, for those of you, if you've been around before, watched rockets launch, especially test flight vehicles and first launches, I'm looking at you, Starship. You guys know what it's like sometimes when you're just waiting, going, is this thing going to launch today? And just that kind of those ups and downs. But you know that sweet and the what's the saying? The sweet and salty? No, the sweet and sour. There we go. You know, you have to experience the sour in order to enjoy the sweet. So sometimes having a vehicle scrub and kind of play with your emotions a little bit just make it that much more rewarding. That's at least for me. I know that's true for me. Like I have been to, I think the one that was maybe the ultimate for me to see in person was EFT-1. It was the first time that that NASA's Orion capsule flew on top of a Delta IV Heavy rocket out of Kennedy Space Center. And I think it only actually scrubbed one day, but that reset, I mean, it was a 24-hour scrub, but you know, there's like a 4-hour window and we're sitting there going, is this thing going to fly? Is it gonna, you know, and just that whole thing. But by the time it took off the next day, I was like so excited to see it fly. I don't know, something about that. It's just a normal part of space flight. You guys, if you're new, you'll know, you might not be familiar with that, but those of you that know, you know what it's like. So, let's see. I'm not sure what all these mean, but that's cool. Let's see. Okay, this is an interesting question from Tanner. Just getting here. I was wondering why you think, or wondering what you think of replacing stage 0 with a magnetic levitation train angled up the side of a mountain to get some initial velocity. So we get asked questions like this quite a bit. You know, why don't they launch from a mountaintop? Or why don't, or air launch like Virgin Orbit does? The simple matter of fact is, you have to consider the cost of what it takes to have, well, first off, for a mountain, it's really considered a big no-no to fly a fully fueled rocket over populated areas. So you'd have to find a mountaintop that is right next to the ocean. Any good-sized mountain likely isn't anywhere near the ocean, especially on an eastern seaboard, right? So if you wanted to say launch from 3 kilometers or something on top of a mountain, that's a pretty big mountain. That's still not very much vertical velocity either. You're still not, you're not getting any velocity. And there's a lot of velocity involved in reaching orbit. You need to be going almost 28,000 kilometers an hour, 17,500 miles an hour sideways in order to actually get in orbit, because you have to, think of it like if you launch if you threw a football, it's kind of going to go up an arc. But if you want to throw it further, you need to get a lot more velocity and it will arc. And then you just think about the faster you're making something go, the further that arc gets. And eventually that arc gets big enough to literally just go around the world. And assuming you're above the atmosphere, there's nothing to slow you back down, and you'll maintain that orbit for a long time. There is, of course, still, it's not like the atmosphere just turns off. There's still a trace amount of atmosphere in low Earth orbits. So eventually stuff there does deorbit, but that's besides the point. That's the general concept. But as far as things like levitation, like magnetic, trains or having something throw a rocket, you just look at what would the cost of that system be? What is the danger of that system if something goes wrong? And one of the biggest things is it's really considered a good idea to turn your rocket on before you let it go, right? So if you're throwing your rocket off of a levitation train or, maglev train, or some kind of, a plane, even like what Virgin Orbit does, you have the risk.
Hello, it's Scott Manley here. Today, Astra launched their 6th rocket, hoping to finally demonstrate their ability to reach a stable orbit. This launch, instead, has become one of the more memorable launches of recent times, or all time, to be honest. The rocket lost one of 5 engines almost immediately, and with a thrust-to-weight ratio of 1, it pretty much went sideways, hovering laterally across the landscape until it eventually burned enough propellant to start heading upwards. And I'm going to say right away, I have a huge amount of respect for Astra's guidance and navigation team, because that rocket, it kept control. It didn't have enough thrust. It had asymmetric thrust, but it kept moving and it kept going up, which makes this next call out amazing.
Our next objective is max Q.
Yeah, I mean, they just let that thing go, and there's a good reason for that, because this rocket, if they had just terminated the flight, it would have fallen back inside the missile range, and that would have been an expensive cleanup operation. They previously had a couple of failures which required expensive environmental cleanup. So by letting the thing continue, they had a good chance of getting it out to sea. That was their sort of first objective. The next objective was, how far can it fly so they can collect engineering data? I mean, it was pretty clear to us watching that it wasn't going to reach orbit. Its ascent was too slow. We didn't know initially that it had lost an engine, but we did see that it didn't have enough thrust. And that meant that it was wasting a lot of its delta V fighting against gravity, and only slowly beginning to hit your really decent speeds. So it cleared the island about a minute and a half into the flight, but it was still subsonic at this point. Normally it would have passed max Q at about 1 minute and 15 seconds, and the total engine burn would be 2 minutes and 50 seconds. We had to actually guess at most of this telemetry. It only came up later in the flight. In fact, the telemetry early on showed negative velocity, which is not something you want to see. But yeah, the 2 minute mark, we start to actually see some real views back to the launch site down there. Astra launches from the Pacific Spaceport Complex on Kodiak Island in Alaska. Anyway, this camera is looking down to the side of the rocket, and it's about to cut its engines, but if you look on the right side, you can see a piece sticking out. That is part of the aerodynamic cover for the cable raceway, and when we cut the engines, that gets pulled out and you get a better idea. But yeah, the Astra launch vehicle, its flight termination system basically involves cutting the engines and letting it fall into the ocean, and that's what they did. And you can see that this vehicle instantly spins out of control due to the aerodynamic forces, even though it is 36 kilometers up. That's over 100,000 feet. I did the math based on the telemetry, and it looks like it was moving upwards at 450 meters per second and sideways or downrange at 600 meters per second. So it looks, based on the telemetry, that it probably plateaus or apogees at about 47 kilometers, a long way from space, and then would fall into the ocean several minutes later. And while they did cut away from the onboard camera showing it spinning out of control, they did cut back to the ground camera, which does a marvellous job of showing the field that it has just ploughed. I mean, I guess it's a good thing they kept the gate open, right? And so really, while this is spectacular and will be talked about for a very long time, it isn't a good result for Astra, and I really feel sorry for them. They've been working on this project for a long time. They've iterated on their rocket a great deal. This was another variant of their Model 3 or version 3 rocket. One of the main things that they changed was that they had extended the first stage by about 5 more feet to add more propellant. And this extra propellant was in part to make up for the fact that last December on their launch number 5, they had got through their first stage, they'd separated the second stage, and it had got incredibly close to being in orbit. It had come up short by less than 500 meters per second, which is essentially orbital velocity when you hit the atmosphere at that speed, but unfortunately doesn't keep you in orbit. And so Astra were making a big deal about how this launch would be the one to show that they were able to do what they promised. And, it's getting more important because they are now a publicly traded company and people own stock in Astra. And that has given the company more money to play with. And when Chris Kemp came up afterwards to explain or give the concession speech, he pointed out this is booster number 7 sitting behind him ready to go as soon as they figure out exactly what went wrong on this flight. And most of the interesting stuff happens in the first few seconds. So one thing to watch is the very bottom of the rocket on the right side. You will see the raceway cover get kicked up by some event and bang into the side. That's the thing that we see flapping in that camera. Then the vehicle moves up a little, pitches over sideways, and immediately The vehicle tries to correct itself, but of course it's moving laterally, so it just puts itself vertically upwards. At this point, it is burning propellant and getting lighter and lighter, and it begins to move upwards ever so slowly. And of course, that lateral motion is somewhat different from regular rocket launches. I mean, we all know that rockets spend most of their time picking up horizontal speed so they can stay in orbit. In this case, the Astra just tried to do it a little early. Anyway, if you look at that panel popping out, you'll notice there is a flash of an explosion that pushes that out. So there's like an explosion of some sort that's probably related to the engine shutting down prematurely. And you can also see at this point that the rocket has actually started moving upwards when this event happens. So with one of the engines going out, it's not getting enough thrust on one side and it starts to pitch over in one direction. So immediately, of course, the computer on board does the whole flamey end thing down and pointy end up, but it's still moving laterally, quickly disappearing into a cloud of steam, rather like Homer Simpson disappearing into a hedge. Now the steam kind of hides what's going on down there, but there's a few frames where the engines peek out and you can see a gap there in them. Having said that, I wouldn't read too much into that because this image by John Krause shows that there is a visible gap depending upon the angle. The nozzles are quite far apart. Also, the images where we've seen gaps don't quite line up where we would expect the engine that failed to be. Astra CEO Chris Kemp posted the other angle onto Twitter video, and of course Twitter video is lousy in terms of quality, but it is another angle and there's a couple of things to see. From this angle you don't get to see the panel popping up, but you do get to see a flash in the engine area, and as the rocket turns over you get to see the engines just running through the bottom of the launch stand and throwing debris out. This view does give us a slightly better look at the launch clamp as it pops backwards to release the rocket. And once that booster starts moving, it's absolutely in their best interest to try and keep it moving as far away from the launch site as possible. And usually that means going upwards rather than sideways. So anyway, the other bit to watch in slow motion is the end of the flight after they've shut off the engines, and you can get a better idea of the shape of that object which is attached there and just dangling around, right? You can see that it's actually hollow. So anyway, this is an image of the older version of 3.0 rocket. It's slightly shorter, but the base of it is what I care about. You can see on the rocket going up, there's raceway, which had the cables and other stuff. You'll also see that there's like fuel lines running into that. You can see 5 engines, and I think that engine in the middle closest to us, that's the one that went out. Because when the rocket started to veer off, it basically came towards the camera angle here. And on this photo, you can see that there are actually what look like fluid lines, possibly propellant lines running into that. And you could imagine that if there was some sort of blast in there, that debris could come from that and hit that motor at the top, damaging the nozzle and possibly causing the engine to shut down pretty much straight away. So the rocket had a thrust to weight ratio of 1.25, and as soon as it lost an engine, it was down to 1. And it was just basically trying to keep itself from falling over and destroying anything critical. It ascended slowly, picked up speed, but basically it was burning too much propellant and not getting enough acceleration. It was losing too much energy to gravity losses. And of course that meant that max Q happened way later. Main engine cutout was supposed to be at 2 minutes 50 seconds, but because it was running on only 4 engines rather than 5, it would have had an extra 30 seconds or so before it ran out of propellant. But they called the flight termination early, and I think the reason they called the flight termination before MECO was that they wanted to make sure that the booster fell into this first exclusion zone. They wanted to keep it flying long enough that it wouldn't land on the island. I think they were happy to get some flight time on it to verify other systems, but if they let it run too long, it would have probably ended up between those two zones, and that would have caused a bit of a consternation with the FAA. And you know, one thing I haven't mentioned is that this is Astra's first proper live streamed launch, and they actually did it in collaboration with NASAspaceflight.com, who are essentially a bunch of hardcore rocket fans who do this semi-professionally. And I think it was a really good stream. I'm really happy that Astra opened up and started sharing this with the world, and it hurts that they did this and they were rewarded with a failure. I really hope this continues because, I thought it was actually a pretty well-produced stream, and unfortunately the hardware was left wanting. And I hope that Astra get through the engineering problems, they solve it, and a few years from now they can look back on this absurd initial launch and laugh, because I think people will remember this for a long time, and I hope that Astra are remembered for more than the people that launched the rocket sideways. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.